We all know that there are a lot of problematic villains, and in this video, I'm going to be listing the 10 most problematic ones from animated movies. So without further ado, let's get to the video. At number 10, we have Mother Gothel from Tangled. She's definitely one of the more troubling villains in Disney history, mainly because of her manipulative and abusive behavior towards Rapunzel. Gothel's greed knows no bounds, and it's this selfishness that drives her to keep Rapunzel locked away in the tower. What's worse is how she emotionally abuses Rapunzel and gaslights her into thinking that she's doing everything for her own good. It's a toxic cycle that traps Rapunzel in isolation for years, depriving her of the freedom and adventure she so desperately craves. But here's the kicker. Some audiences might mistakenly see Gothel as just a flawed character with good intentions. After all, she claims to be looking out for Rapunzel's best interests. However, her actions speak louder than words, revealing her true manipulative nature. It's true that Gothel's motivations are driven by fear rather than outright hatred, but that doesn't excuse her behavior. At number 9, we have Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. He's got that whole macho, arrogant vibe going on, but Gaston's true colors start to show when it comes to his treatment of Belle. He's not exactly what you'd call a feminist icon. In fact, he's downright misogynistic, with his disdain for Belle's love of reading and his insistence on wanting her to be nothing more than a homemaker. But here's where it gets really ugly. Gaston just can't handle rejection. When Belle rejects his advances and falls for the Beast instead, Gaston's fragile ego takes a hit. He convinces himself that Belle must be under some sort of spell, rather than considering the possibility that she might actually have feelings for someone else. Instead of taking a step back and reflecting on his own behavior, Gaston doubles down on his misguided beliefs. This leads to a violent confrontation at the Beast's castle, where Gaston ultimately meets his demise. It's a tragic end for a character who couldn't see past his own pride and prejudice. Coming in at number 8, we have Rourke from Atlantis, The Lost Empire. Right from the get-go, Rourke's only goal is to get his hands on Atlantis' riches, no matter the cost. He's willing to kidnap Kida and put her entire civilization at risk just to line his own pockets. And if that wasn't bad enough, he's also planning to sell off the stolen technology to the highest bidder, even if it means fueling wars between nations. But here's where things get a little complicated. Despite his greed and ruthlessness, Rourke does show some concern for the safety of his crew. When they're faced with danger, he steps up as a leader and ensures their survival, even if it means facing off against the Leviathan beneath the waves. And let's not forget, Rourke never really lied about his intentions. He was pretty upfront about his desire for wealth and power. It takes some convincing for his crew to turn against him, showing that he does have some loyalty and respect among his peers. So, while Rourke may not be the most evil villain out there, he's still pretty despicable. His selfishness and greed ultimately lead to his downfall, but not before causing plenty of chaos along the way. Taking the spot at number 7, we have Lord Farquaad from Shrek. From the start, Farquaad's main objective is to rid his kingdom of fairy tale creatures. He's not exactly the most tolerant guy around and wants to create a nation where only humans are allowed to live. Talk about discriminatory, right? But things take a turn when Shrek enters the picture. Farquaad strikes a deal with the ogre, agreeing to remove the fairy tale creatures from his swamp in exchange for Shrek bringing Princess Fiona to him. Sounds like a fair trade, right? Well, not so much. Fiona doesn't exactly have a say in the matter, and when she finally meets Farquaad, let's just say it's not love at first sight. Thankfully, Farquaad's reign of terror comes to an end when he meets a rather untimely demise. With his forces out of the picture, everyone can finally breathe a sigh of relief and live happily ever after. Well, almost everyone. Coming in at number 6, we have Frollo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Frollo's hatred for gypsies is truly troubling. He launches a brutal campaign against them, ordering his guards to round them up and imprison them in cages. This campaign of persecution even leads to the destruction of parts of Notre Dame itself. Talk about ruthless. What makes Frollo even more problematic is his obsession with Esmeralda. He's willing to go to extreme lengths to possess her, even if it means destroying everything and everyone in his path. It's clear that his moral compass is seriously skewed. Interestingly, Frollo's character underwent some changes from the original source material. In the original book, he was actually a priest, not a judge. The filmmakers decided to tweak his background to make it less controversial for audiences, given the already daring nature of the film. At number 5 is Titan from Megamind. Titan's origin story is quite the roller coaster. Initially just an average cameraman filming Roxanne's news stories, his life takes a drastic turn when Megamind, the resident supervillain, accidentally grants him Metro Man's powers. With this sudden surge of power, Titan transforms into a formidable foe, far surpassing Megamind's expectations. He becomes a menacing figure, using his abilities to manipulate and control Roxanne, even going so far as to attempt to eliminate Megamind himself in a fit of jealousy. Titan's aggressive and predatory behavior pushes Megamind to reevaluate his own role and motivations. It's this catalyst that ultimately spurs Megamind to step up and become the hero the city needs, setting the stage for an epic showdown between good and evil. At number 4 is Hernan Cortez, from The Road to El Dorado. Loosely based on the historical figure of the same name, Cortez serves as a secondary antagonist in the film. When Tulio and Miguel are discovered on his ship, Cortez initially plans to force them into a life of slavery. However, he soon forgets about them after they manage to escape. It's not until Zekel sparks his interest in the mythical city of El Dorado that Cortez re-enters the picture. Had the heroes failed to seal off the path to El Dorado, Cortez would have posed a serious threat to the indigenous population. His intentions were clear: to either massacre or enslave the people of El Dorado and plunder their precious treasures for his own gain. Taking the number 3 spot is Governor Ratcliffe from the classic Disney film, Pocahontas. Ratcliffe was dispatched by the English with a mission to colonize North America. Upon arriving, he became infatuated with the promise of gold and riches that the land held. Driven by his greed, Ratcliffe ordered his men to clear the forests and exploit the land for their own benefit. When conflicts arose with the Native Americans, Ratcliffe showed no interest in peaceful negotiations. Instead, he saw John Smith's disappearance as an opportunity to incite a violent conflict, hoping to eliminate his adversaries and claim the land uncontested. However, Ratcliffe's manipulative tactics eventually backfired. When Pocahontas intervened to protect John Smith from harm, Ratcliffe's own men realized they had been misled and turned against him. In the end, Ratcliffe was held accountable for his crimes and sent back to face justice in England. At number 2 is Pharaoh Ramses from The Prince of Egypt. As the ruler of Egypt, Ramesses was initially depicted as a brotherly figure to Moses. However, their familial bond was not enough to sway Ramesses from his firm belief in maintaining the status quo, even if it meant keeping the Israelites enslaved to build his grand monuments. Despite witnessing the devastating plagues brought upon Egypt, Ramesses remained stubborn and refused to release the Israelites until the death of his own son finally compelled him to relent. Yet, even after allowing the Israelites to leave, Ramesses quickly regretted his decision and pursued them in a vengeful pursuit across the sea. In the end, Ramesses' relentless pursuit only led to his own downfall. As the waters closed in around him, he realized too late the consequences of his actions, as his desire for revenge ultimately cost him everything. Taking the top spot at number 1 is none other than the Joker from the chilling graphic novel, The Killing Joke. While the Joker is infamous for his sinister deeds and his ongoing battle with Batman, his actions in The Killing Joke stand out as some of his most heinous. In this dark tale, the Joker targets the Gordon family, inflicting unspeakable trauma upon them. He shoots Barbara Gordon, leaving her paralyzed, and then proceeds to torment her father, Jim Gordon, by subjecting him to a series of twisted and horrifying images depicting Barbara's suffering. The Joker's ultimate goal is to prove his twisted philosophy that anyone, regardless of their moral fiber, can be driven to madness by a single traumatic event. His sadistic methods and utter lack of remorse make him a truly terrifying and disturbing villain, cementing his status as one of the most iconic and unsettling characters in comic book history.